According to the Consumers Price Index report for the month of September, the National Bureau of Statistics reported the Nigeria's inflation rate has sustained a downward trend after falling for 6 months consecutively. And despite falling inflation, the life of the average Nigerian is far from a bowl of cherries, as prices of food and other consumer goods are still very high, and the cost of living in many cities is also on the high side. However, food inflation reached its highest level in 12 years in March this year, with the average price of food index pegged at 22.95%. This means that food is getting more expensive. However, while the rise has slowed in the last 6 months, headline inflation and food inflation remain significantly high at double digits. Well, I have joining me virtually now to discuss this and more, Researcher and Agribusiness economist Dr. Mathew Ojo. Good to have you on the show today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me once again. It's a pleasure to.
Now, according to the description we have from the local front and international front, Nigeria is dealing with a food crisis. Irrespective of the slowing inflationary pressure we have going on, so many still believe that we have a food crisis, which is just a ticking time bomb for the masses. Do you share the sentiment?
Yes, that statement cannot be further from the truth, and it can be also scary, apart from disturbing. You see, Nigeria is a country that you have people suffering in the midst of plenty. When it comes to food issue, everything is about supply and demand. That's the basic economic principle most of us learned when we were still in secondary school. So when you talk about supply, we want to look at what is happening to food supply in Nigeria, food production, to be candid. You find out that whatever will affect supply will eventually rebound or resound in prices. So you want to look at the number of those producing, for example, and if the number of producers goes up or comes down, it affects what is supplied. What is supplied also, if it's available in abundance, price goes down expectedly. If not, price goes up. So in the area of supply, in the area of availability, that is where concerns are being raised. There's no doubt that when it comes to certain commodities, we are the largest producer in the world. You want to talk about yam, you want to talk about cassava. But then when you look at the number of those involved in production now, vis-a-vis the security issues or challenges we're having in the country, then you begin to understand where that fear is coming from and concern about food crisis. So unless we address certain issues that affect supply, which then eventually is reverberated in the prices of food commodities, we might have a serious challenge to grapple with in the next few years. If you remember the World Bank report last June, talking about food inflation and consistent rise in prices of food, it's saying that it's estimated about 7 million Nigerians are being pushed below the poverty line as a result of this constant increase in food prices. So if you look at all that, there is no doubt that everybody that sees this trend will be concerned and be disturbed. And that's why we keep on saying things has to be done. We need to make effort to address certain things. There are some fundamental areas where a little bit of intervention will bring about that maximum change. For example, you want to look at the food supply chain in Nigeria. I've mentioned this earlier in one of your programs. Look at the number of actors that are within that supply chain. Whatever food commodity you take, you can reduce the number, because the more actors you have within that supply chain, the more likely you have the price of the commodity soaring higher when it eventually gets to the market. So we call them middlemen. Can government come into play and do something around that? Because in some food commodities, we don't have issues with availability or production, but the challenge is with the price it eventually comes down with when it gets to the market, and it goes beyond what the average man can afford. So we can do something about that. The government can come and play big in the area of transporting food from where it is produced to where it's eventually sold. It is left totally to players to just do whatever they like now. Can we encourage private sectors to come and play big in food transportation and see if we can at least regulate that area so that food prices will not be soaring high each time people go to the market. The concern is you go to the market today with 100 naira, you go again in 2 weeks time, your 100 naira cannot buy the same thing you bought last week. So why wouldn't people be scared? Why won't people be concerned? That is the area I think we can address immediately to control this constant hike in food prices.
Dr. Ojo, you've touched on a whole lot of issues. You've made the breakdown quite simple. Why is it difficult for commissioners of agriculture, the Minister of Agriculture, subnational levels of government, why is it difficult to understand these issues? Yes, we have the challenges of middlemen that make certain prices go high irrespective of whatever harvest we have. Yes, there's the issue of insecurity. But in the conversation around creating new hubs, why is it taking so long now to help in this creation of hubs and take action? You've broken down all of this situation, all of this index here that you've raised.
You see, honestly, at times, so that one doesn't now sound as like a broken record. When we mention government, it's as if nobody's listening. Maybe we should change the approach. What can people do to help themselves? Because it's as good as not having any government in place that is listening to what the people want. You see, a few years back, I worked with a British anthropologist who was researching about the headsmen and farmers clashes we were having in Nigeria. He made a comment. He said, "I'm surprised at what is going on in your country." He grew up also in Nigeria. He said, "Every time you say government should do this, but people know that government won't do anything." So maybe the focus should be, what can we do as citizens, in the face of an ever increasing or changing food prices? What can you and I do? Because the last time I was on your program, I did highlight certain things that state governments can do. Now the question is, why are they not being done? I don't know. Everybody needs food. You want people to vote for you tomorrow. If they are hungry, they'll just make wrong choices. Maybe that is what some people are playing on. But food issue is something you cannot toy with. So we know what government at the state level needs to do. Because each time we mention government, some people are so easily focusing on, they will always focus on the national government. No, state governments know what to do. They know where they produce food. They know the food hubs in their states. They know how good the roads are. They know how bad the roads are. They know what should be done to fix those roads that are bad. Most roads that are rural roads, they are not pliable. You can't go there during rainy season. And all these things are there, staring all of us at the face. If you go to local areas in some states, you will wonder how come people are still living in such remote areas. But I think what we can take from here is this. We know food prices always changes, and there are factors, so many factors that can cause this. For example, where these food commodities are produced, the distance from where they are produced to the market, that distance can add to the price when it eventually gets to the market. We've talked about the issue of middlemen. We've talked about the number of people producing. So you and I, what can we do? I think one of the things people can do, because you are not sure of what the price will be the next time you go to the market, is where you have the ability and where you can buy in bulk. So you do bulk purchasing. You don't just buy things and say, I'll come back the next time, because you might go back the next time, your 100 naira will not afford the same thing you bought few weeks back. So where it's possible, you and I can buy in bulk, and especially for commodities that won't get spoiled on time. And the other ones, you can just find a way of managing them. Then where you cannot individually buy in bulk, groups, I've seen women come together, go to markets, and they buy a bag of rice, they buy a whole cow, they share. Eventually, you are beating down the price, okay? Because group purchase will help you to afford what ordinarily one person cannot afford. Another thing I also look at is, when you are buying food on commodities under this kind of situation, can you look at how to reduce the involvement of these middlemen or these actors that eventually increase the price? If you know where something is produced, you go and buy it there, if possible. It will help you to buy more and pay less. If you look at the price report released by the NBS for September, you will notice that some food prices changed or increased, others relatively remain stable. And if you have such information, market information is also key. It will help you to know where to go and buy what, so that you don't spend more
Dr.
buying less.
Wrapping up our conversation now, the face of poverty is not changing. The face of malnutrition is not changing. But our stance, government stance, can definitely change. What do you think would be some of the worst we could have recorded if we still make this same mistakes or this nonchalant behavior and take it on to 2022, looking at the food crisis we have at hand? What do you think might likely be the worst case scenario? We have onions, as said last year, hit as high as 300%. This year, there are some who are saying it might reach about 400% thereabout in December. Whether or not this is going to play out, what do you think might be the likely mistakes we will replicate or are just naturally prone to following through our approach?
One thing that will easily disturb one's mind is the number of poor people that will increase over time. Because if you have food prices increasing every now and then, and income is not changing in the same proportion, that means you have people with money and they can't buy things to feed themselves. You have more hungry people, more poor people, and then, like I've always said, a hungry person is an angry person, and people can get to the point where they can't take it anymore. So you find crimes also increasing, people stealing just because they need to feed and survive. That's just to tell you that where the food issue is not attended to on time, crime will go up. You have more people become destitute, more poor people, in the community, and it eventually becomes a threat to those who are comfortable, or the middle class people, just like we saw a few months ago in the country. So I think what we need to do is to start addressing the food challenge we have currently. Now it might look a little bit not too troubling because the harvesting period that's what we are in now. So you still see people still able to manage one or two things. But you never can tell what can happen as we get closer and closer to the festivity period. So that is why we need to pay attention to addressing food challenges in the country, especially as it concerns state governments.
Thank you very much there for your time on the show today, Dr. Mathew Ojo, and we hope all actors, whether at state or federal or individual levels, are taking note, and then we need a concerted efforts towards ensuring that we have improved food situations in the country. We can't just continue at this rate. Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you for having me.